My parents disowned me for marrying my husband, calling him not good enough for our family. 10 years later, they're begging to move in with us because they lost everything. And I told them they made their choice long ago. You know that moment when your entire life splits into before and after? For me, it was the day my father slammed his fist on the dining table and said, "If you marry that man, don't ever come back." 10 years ago, I stood in my childhood kitchen, clutching my fiancé's hand so tight my knuckles turned white, while my parents called him a dead end, unambitious, not one of us. They didn't care that he made me laugh harder than anyone, that he showed up for me in ways they never did. All they saw was his job as a mechanic, his faded jeans, the fact that his family didn't have a vacation home or a country club membership. So I left. And I never looked back, until last week, when they showed up on my doorstep, suitcases in hand asking for help. Let me rewind. My husband, Jake, the man they swore would ruin me, spent a decade building a life with me from scratch. We lived in a studio apartment with a leaky faucet that kept us awake at night. He worked double shifts. I took freelance gigs between college classes. We saved every penny. Now, we own a small auto repair shop that's become the heartbeat of our town. We've got 2 kids who don't even know their grandparents' names. And my parents, they lost everything, the house, the status, the perfect image, after bad investments and a scandal my dad couldn't talk his way out of. But here's the thing they don't tell you about forgiveness. It doesn't just hurt because of what happened. It hurts because part of you still wants to fix it. When my mom whispered, "We've got nowhere else to go," I felt that old ache in my chest, the little girl who just wanted her parents to be proud. But then I remembered the silence, the empty chairs at our wedding, the way they told my sister not to make the same mistake. So I stood there, staring at the people who once called me a disappointment, and said, "You don't get to choose when you're family." Jake's waiting for me to decide. The kids keep asking who those sad people at the door were. And my parents, they're still texting. But here's what I haven't told anyone yet. There's a box in my closet. Inside are letters I wrote them every year, never sent. Letters full of everything I wanted to scream, and everything I wanted to heal. Maybe it's time to open it. Or maybe it's time to let go. The box sits at the back of my closet, buried under old sweaters I never wear. I pull it out sometimes when Jake's at work and the kids are at school, just to trace my fingers over the postmarks I never stuck on the envelopes. The first letter is dated 2 weeks after the wedding. "Dear Mom and Dad," it starts. I'm writing this from a motel outside Phoenix. Jake fixed a trucker's rig in exchange for a free room. The AC's broken and it's 100 degrees, but he just made me laugh by sticking his head in the ice machine. I wrote that one crying in a bathroom stall at a gas station, my dress still stuffed in a duffel bag. Back then I told myself I didn't need them. Jake and I drove across 3 states chasing work, surviving on gas station coffee, and the kind of hope that only exists when you're 23 and stupid enough to believe love can outrun hunger. But nights were harder. I'd lie awake listening to Jake's steady breathing, wondering if my parents ever stayed up, wondering where I was, if they cared that I'd stopped checking my email, if they even noticed. It wasn't just the money they hated. It was the idea of him. At family dinners, Dad would grill my exes about their internships, their golf handicaps, their 5-year plans. Jake didn't have a 5-year plan. He had a beat-up toolbox and a habit of picking up stray dogs. The first time he came over, he fixed my mom's jam garbage disposal, and she handed him a $20 bill like he was the help. He tried to refuse, but she left it on the counter like a tip. I found it later, crumpled in the driveway. When I got pregnant with our daughter Lily, part of me cracked open. I drove past their house at 2 a.m., 7 months along, just to see if the lights were on. Jake didn't ask where I'd gone, but he held me tighter when I climbed back into bed, my hands shaking. The day Lily was born, I almost called them. I dialed the number, hung up, then sobbed into the hospital pillow while Jake rubbed my back, his voice steady. "They're the ones missing out," he said. "Every damn day. But now they're here. Or at least they're staying at the budget in off Route 9, texting me updates like I'm their life coach. The shower here has mold, Mom wrote yesterday. Your father's back is acting up." I haven't replied. Jake says it's my call, but I see the way his jaw clenches when their names come up. Last night he came home with a bag of takeout and a dented frame he'd found at a garage sale. Inside was a photo of us at the shop's grand opening, both of us grinning, covered in grease. "Thought we could put it in the living room," he said quietly. I knew what he meant. "We built this. Don't let them rewrite it." The kids don't know the details, just that Grandma and Grandpa lived far away. But yesterday my son Max found Dad's business card in our junk drawer. "Why does he have the same last name as us?" he asked. I froze. Jake swooped in, tousling his hair. "Same reason you've got your mom's eyes," he said. "Luck of the draw. I'm not sure who I'm angrier at, them or myself." For still feeling like that 22-year-old girl gripping her boyfriend's hand, waiting for her parents to choose her. For wondering if they're sleeping in that dingy motel, or if Dad's pride is still bigger than his empty bank account. For wanting to protect Jake and the kids from all of it, even though they've never been the ones who needed protecting. And then there's the thing I can't admit out loud. What if they're right? Not about Jake, never about Jake. But what if I let them in and they ruin this? What if I say no, and spend the next 10 years wondering if I became exactly what they accused me of, someone heartless, someone like them? Last night I dreamt I opened the box. The letters spilled out like ghosts, swirling around me while my parents stood in the corner silent. Jake was there too, but I couldn't reach him. When I woke up, the moon was glaring through the window, and his side of the bed was cold. I found him in the garage, staring at the '67 Mustang we've been restoring together. "You okay?" I asked. He didn't turn around. "Just thinking," he said. "That first night we slept in the car. I swore I'd never let you regret choosing me." I didn't know what to say. So I just sat beside him on the concrete floor, our shoulders touching, listening to the hum of the fluorescent lights. Somewhere out there, my parents are probably arguing about the motel Wi-Fi or the scratchy sheets. And here in this quiet garage, our whole life feels like it's holding its breath. The budget and smells like cigarettes and bleach. My parents never would have set foot in a place like this before. Mom used to spray the couch cushions if someone sat down after riding the subway. Now, according to her texts, she's learning to microwave ramen noodles in a coffee maker. Dad's messages are shorter, stiff. "Hope you're well." Like we're distant coworkers, not blood. Jake's been quieter since the night in the garage. He throws himself into the Mustang, sanding the rusted hood until his hands shake. I know what he's doing, keeping his mind off the unspoken question hanging between us. But yesterday when I brought him lunch, I caught him staring at an old photo on his phone. It was us, sweaty and exhausted, sitting on the floor of our first apartment eating cereal for dinner. "We were happy then," he said, not looking at me. "Even when it hurt." The kids are picking up on the tension. Lily, my sharp-eyed 9-year-old, has started hiding in the closet with her sketchbook. When I asked what she was drawing, she showed me a picture of 2 frowning stick figures standing outside a house. "They look sad," she said. "Maybe they forgot their keys." Max, ever the negotiator, offered to share his bedtime stories with Grandma and Grandpa if they're lonely. "But only if they say sorry for making you cry," he added, patting my cheek with his sticky, popsicle-covered hand. I almost broke then. But the universe has a way of ripping band-aids off. This morning Mom showed up at the shop. Not the house, the shop. She stood in the parking lot, her once perfect blowout frizzing in the humidity, holding a cardboard box. "Your father's old ties," she said, thrusting it at me. He thought, maybe Jake could use them. The box was light. Too light. When I opened it later, buried under silk paisley and striped wool was a sealed envelope labeled, "For Lily and Max," in Dad's precise handwriting. I haven't opened it. It sits on our kitchen counter like a landmine. Jake found me staring at it at 3 a.m., the moonlight slicing through the curtains. "You don't owe them anything," he said, but his voice wavered. I realized then he's scared. Not of them, but of what happens if I let them in. The shop, the kids, us. It's all been a fortress we built brick by brick. What if one crack brings it down? Meanwhile, the letters whisper to me. Last night, I read the one from the day Lily took her first steps. "Mom, you should have seen her. She laughed the whole time like she knew how brave she was. There's a stain on the paper, probably ice cream, from when Lily smeared her spoon on my desk." I almost texted them a photo of her soccer game last week. Almost. But then my sister called. The golden child who married a lawyer, had the right kind of wedding, the right kind of kids. "We haven't spoken in 9 years. They're embarrassed to ask you for money," she said, clipped. "But they're desperate. Dad's been selling his watches." I hung up before she could finish, my chest burning. They'd rather starve than admit they were wrong, than admit I was right. Now, as I scrub coffee stains off the shop counter, I keep replaying Jake's words. "What if we just hear them out?" he muttered this morning while loading tools into his truck. The doubt in his eyes terrified me. This man who'd once slept in a freezing car to keep me warm, now wondering if maybe the people who broke me deserve a second chance. The bell above the shop door jingles. It's not a customer. Dad stands there, squinting under the fluorescent lights, his suit wrinkled. For a heartbeat he looks small. Then he straightens, clears his throat. "Your mother's at the hospital," he says. "High blood pressure. She's asking for you." Behind me, a wrench clatters to the floor. Jake's watching from the garage bay, oil smeared across his forehead like war paint. The AC kicks on, blowing the unopened envelope off the counter. It skitters across the floor, stopping at Dad's polished shoe. He glances down, hesitates, then steps over it. The hospital hallway smells like antiseptic and wilted flowers. Mom's in room 214. Dad said she's stable, but he won't look me in the eye. Jake stayed behind with the kids, his voice tight when I left. Do what you need to do. I don't know if he meant for them or for us. She's asleep when I walk in. Tubes snake out from under the sheets, machines beeping like a countdown. Her hair's thin, gray roots showing. I haven't seen her without makeup since I was a kid. The last time we were in a hospital together, she told me I was throwing away my future as I packed my suitcase in the maternity ward. Now her hand twitches when I sit down. Mom, I whisper. Nothing. Dad hovers in the doorway, clutching a styrofoam cup. She didn't eat for 3 days, he says. Said the motel food wasn't clean. He spits the word like it's poison. I want to scream, you did this. Your pride, your rules, but his knuckles are white around the cup, and for the first time I see it, fear. Real raw fear. When Mom's eyes flutter open, she doesn't recognize me at first. Then she gasps, fingers clawing at the blanket. Clara? You came. Her voice is paper thin. I don't correct her. My name hasn't been Clara since I left. Jake started calling me Claire as a joke our first week on the road, and it stuck. A new name for a new life. The doctors say I need rest, she rasps. Low stress. Her laugh turns into a cough. Your father, he's too stubborn to ask. But we need a place. Just for a little while. She reaches for my hand. I don't take it. The envelope burns hotter in my mind. All night, I'd pace the kitchen tracing Dad's handwriting. Jake finally snapped, open it or burn it, but stop letting it haunt us. I shoved it in my purse instead. Now it feels like it's pulsing against my hip. Dad clears his throat. There's something you should, my phone buzzes. A photo from Jake. Lily and Max at the shop, grinning under the grand opening banner Jake hung last year. Max is holding a wrench half his size. Lily's wearing my old bandana. The caption, they miss you. When I look up, Mom's watching me. Are those the children, she asks. There's a hunger in her voice that makes my skin crawl. We heard you had a girl. And a boy. Dad stiffens, staring at the wall. Of course they kept track. Of course they never reached out. I stand abruptly, chair screeching. I need air. Dad follows me to the parking lot. The sun's too bright, the sky mocking us with its cheerfulness. Your mother's not the only one who's sorry, he says suddenly. His tie's crooked, the same navy blue one he wore to my high school graduation. We underestimated you. Both of you. It's the closest he's ever come to an apology. My fingers brush the envelope in my purse. Why now? He hesitates. The letters. Your sister found copies. She thought we should know. The world tilts. Copies. I never sent them. Never even told, then it hits me. The box in my closet. The stamps I never used. Jake's face when he said, I swore I'd never let you regret choosing me. He knew. He's always known. My phone rings. It's the shop. Jake's voice is strained. You need to come home. Now. Tires screech as I pull into the driveway. Jake's truck is gone. Lily's bike lies sideways on the lawn, front wheel spinning. The front door is ajar. I sprint inside, heart clawing up my throat. Jake? Kids. The living room is eerily still. Sunlight glares off the photo frame he bought. The one from the shop's opening, now cracked on the floor. And there on the kitchen table sits the envelope. Opened. My hands shake as I pull out the contents. Not a letter. A deed. To their old house, the one they lost. Signed over to me, dated 2 days ago. Underneath, a sticky note in Dad's handwriting. A fresh start. But that's not what stops me cold. It's the other paper. A printed email from 5 years ago. From Dad's law firm to sister subject, Clara's trust fund. Per your parents' instructions, the $250,000 inheritance was frozen indefinitely upon her estrangement. If she reinitiates contact, advise her attorney to. The numbers blur. $250,000. They had it this whole time. They have it. And now they're handing me a house like it's a peace offering, while texting about moldy motel showers. Footsteps echo behind me. Jake stands in the doorway, Lily and Max trailing him, their faces smudged with ice cream. They were at the park, he says flatly. Your sister picked them up after school. Told the office she was their aunt. Max tugs my sleeve. Aunt Sarah said we're having a sleepover. She has a pool. The room tilts. Sarah. The sister who hasn't spoken to me in a decade. Now bribing my kids with inflatable rafts and chlorine fumes. Jake staring at the deed in my hands. What is that? I can't tell him. Not yet. Because there's something else in the envelope. A photo of Mom holding Lily's baby picture. Her face streaked with tears. Dated last year. They've been watching us. Jake steps closer, voice low. While you were at the hospital, your dad called. Said if we let them stay, they'll transfer guardianship of the trust fund for the kids' college. His laugh is hollow. Funny, right? Now we're good enough for their money. Lily's drawing falls out of her backpack. A new sketch. A big house with 2 smiling stick figures outside, and 2 frowning ones in a tiny car. They said we could all live together, she whispers. But I don't want to leave our home. My phone buzzes. Mom. Clara, please. We can fix this. Jake staring at the cracked photo frame. You kept the letters, he says, not a question. All those years. Why? Before I can answer, headlights flood the window. Sarah's SUV idles in the driveway, Mom and Dad in the back seat. Dad's holding a stuffed bear. The one Max left at the motel. They just want to talk, Sarah says through the screen door. 5 minutes. But Jake's already walking out the back, car keys jangling. Lily starts to cry. Max kicks the deed across the floor. And the stuffed bear's lifeless eyes seem to ask, how much is your pride worth? The stuffed bear hits the floor as I yank the door open. Mom's leaning on Dad's arm, her hospital bracelet still dangling. But it's Sarah's smirk that ignites me. You don't get to show up here, I say, blocking the threshold. Not after using my kids as bargaining chips. Jake's truck roars back into the driveway. He doesn't get out, just kills the engine, watching. Waiting. Dad steps forward, clutching the bear. We didn't know Sarah picked them up. I swear. His voice cracks. She said you changed your mind. Sarah rolls her eyes. Oh, come on. You wanted a reunion. I just greased the wheels. She taps her phone. And FYI, that trust fund? It's got a clause. If you reject it, the money goes to me. Mom gasps, clutching her chest. Sarah, you promised. Promised what? Sarah laughs. That I'd play nice while you two begged Clara to fix your mess? Please. I'm the one who told Dad to freeze the trust in the first place. You think they disowned you for marrying a mechanic? She points at Jake, still sitting in the truck. They disowned you because I showed them the emails. The ones where you called them shallow and suffocating. The air leaves my lungs. Those emails. I wrote them in the motel years ago, drunk on anger and exhaustion. I never hit send. But Sarah's always been good with passwords. Jake's door slams. He strides toward us, his hands in fists. You let her take the kids, he says to my parents, quiet and lethal. You knew. Mom's crying now, her breath shallow. We didn't. We thought she was helping. Sarah shrugs. They're broke. The house deed's a scam. It's about to be foreclosed. But the trust. She grins. That's all mine if you're too proud to take it. I look at Dad. Really look at him. His polished shoes are scuffed. His collar's frayed. All this time I thought their judgment was about money. But it was never the money. It was the fear of losing control, of looking weak. Just like me. Jake's beside me now, his shoulder brushing mine. Your call, he murmurs. Always. I turn to Sarah. Take the trust fund. She blinks. What? Take it, I say. But you'll need it to pay the legal fees when we sue you for fraud. And kidnapping. Her face pales. Jake pulls out his phone, showing her the screen. A security camera clip of Sarah leading Lily and Max to her car without our consent. Got 6 more clips just like this, he says. How's that pool looking now? Sarah stumbles back. Dad lunges at her, but Mom collapses, her knees buckling. Jake catches her before she hits the ground. Call 911, he barks, and for the first time in a decade, Dad listens. Later, in the ER parking lot, Dad hands me a crumpled photo from his wallet. It's me at 5, riding his shoulders, both of us laughing. I kept this, he says. Every day. I don't hug him. But I don't walk away. The trust fund's gone. The house is dust. But when I get home, Lily's redrawn her sketch. The big house is crossed out. Now it's our garage, with all 4 of us waving from the Mustang's roof. Jake finds me staring at it. We could still restore that car, he says. With what money? I ask. He grins, pulling a crumpled lottery ticket from his pocket. Remember that gas station we stopped at last week? Turns out not good enough pays pretty good. The lottery ticket wasn't a jackpot. Just enough to fix the Mustang's engine and repaint it Lily's favorite shade of blue. We didn't tell the kids about the money. Some things are better left simple. Mom survived the hospital scare. Dad drives her to physical therapy now in a second-hand sedan. They don't ask to visit, but every few weeks a package arrives. A children's book Mom used to read me, Dad's vintage watch for Jake to repair. We donate the books to the library. Jake wears the watch. Sarah vanished after the lawsuit threats. Rumor is she moved overseas, chasing the next payout. Sometimes I wonder if she still got that trust fund, or if it's rotting in some offshore account. Either way, the kids stopped asking about her. One night, while sorting through the closet, I found the box of letters. Jake sat cross-legged beside me as I read them aloud. The anger, the loneliness, the tiny victories we'd forgotten. Remember the time we ate nothing but ketchup packets for 3 days? He laughed. I swore I'd never let you live that down. We burned them in the backyard fire pit. Lily roasted marshmallows over the flames. Max waved a stick like a sword, protecting us from sparks. The smoke smelled like closure. The Mustang's first drive was to the coast. Just us, the open road, and the kids off-key sing-along to some pop song on the radio. We stopped at a diner halfway. The kind with sticky menus and waitresses who call you honey. Jake nudged me as we pulled into the parking lot. Look, across the street at a bus stop, Mom and Dad sat side by side on a bench. Mom was wrapped in a thrift store coat, Dad holding a map. They didn't see us. Just two strangers in a town they'd never visited. Heads bent together, figuring out the next stop. Should we? Jake started. I shook my head. Not today. But as we left the diner, I bought an extra slice of apple pie and left it on their bench when they went inside to ask for directions. Old habits die hard. Back home, Lily hung her final sketch above the shop's counter. The Mustang, all of us inside, waving at a tiny stick figure couple in the rearview mirror. They look happier now, she declared. Maybe we all do. The shop's busier than ever. Dad's old ties? Jake turned them into rags for polishing engines. Every now and then when a customer compliments the soft cloth, he smirks. Family heirloom. Last week a letter arrived. No return address. Just a photo of Mom and Dad at the Grand Canyon, squinting at the camera like tourists. On the back, 3 words, we're still learning. I tucked it into the glove box of the Mustang. Some roads don't need a map.